So, not too long ago, I saw this weird tweet from Catherine McKenna. She was the environmental minister, but now she's infrastructure. She still hasn't done a fucking thing. But what I actually found odd was that she tweeted something out saying that farmers supported this carbon tax. Now, I thought that was pretty weird. So I actually looked at a document after the carbon tax ruling came out, and I saw some interveners being the National Farmers Union. Turns out this union is just a bunch of virtue signaling radicals pretending to be farmers. They talk about the same deplorable things, racism and sexism and all the typical stuff that divides every nation. They put out a blog post for International Women's Day, but they didn't put out a blog post for International or National Agriculture Day. So they often sometimes release something like a manifesto of some kind. Take Event 201, for example, that predicted the entire coronavirus epidemic via a simulation and all the scenarios. It essentially was a plan for what everyone was supposed to do. Now looking at the manifesto for National Farmers Union, called Imagine, we see things here how they want the agriculture industry to turn into basically a complete failure. Electric tractors, getting rid of all the inputs, natural as natural can be. They say things like that only for a brief period of time have farmers actually needed fossil fuels, and they've survived just fine without them before. Well, the population of Earth also wasn't 7 billion fucking people. But this is the mentality that you deal with. These people are actually extreme. They're extreme to think this. This is a radical idea. It's extreme. But what was most interesting was their plan to grab all the land back from Canadian farmers. And they wrote the whole thing out. So they said things, they laid out 4 pillars, 4 points of things that they are going to do to get to Agenda 2030, the UN Agenda 2030. And after that, they talk about reparations for the Aboriginal people. And if you're familiar with UNDRIP, the UN Indigenous framework, then it's easy to see kind of, where it goes. So essentially what they suggest, but don't suggest, is that Canada buys all the farmland in Canada, forces to buy the farmland in Canada. They force people to sell the farmland. And we know by this last judgment on the carbon tax that the government of Canada can absolutely go over and above your rights of freedoms. It does not matter. It's civil property rights doesn't matter. They just proved that in this court case on the carbon tax where the Supreme Court ruled that this does not infringe on constitutional rights and freedoms, which means that they can grab your land and they can take away your civil liberties and it doesn't matter. So the point is they want to do is, in the name of reparations, buy all the land, force the land, the farmers, to sell all the land to the government, and the government gives all that land to the Indigenous people. That's what it says in this manifesto. Sure, sounds like a conspiracy theory. Are you watching this with a mask on still after a year with a 99.96% chance of survival? With a forced vaccination, talking about these passes, vaccine passes, and gun grabs are coming? Does it seem like a conspiracy anymore? Or are people just too ignorant to actually figure it out? So, there's the way they're doing it. Just thought I'd let everybody know it's coming. We see this stuff, responsible grain. We have these new groups coming in. It's 75% of all of these organizations are government funded. They rely on government funding. This stuff, everyone needs to just put a halt to all of it. Just all of it. Just do a reset on all of these groups. If you see them slip even a little bit, they just need to go away. You know, everyone they get one strike. If they falter in any way and show their true colors as being for these kinds of radical ideas, then they need to be dismantled. Simple. Or else everybody's going to be a slave to the government. That's just that simple. And if you don't think it's going to happen, you'll be begging you did something when you're standing in a bread line, because now the government takes all the grain off of the land and distributes it equally to whoever they think needs it most. All right.